What's the toughest thing alive? If you ask most people, they might say a cockroach. They can supposedly survive a nuclear blast, or maybe a bear, something big and powerful that can survive a harsh winter. We tend to think of toughness in terms we can see, something that can fight or endure the cold or go a long time without food. And those things are tough, no doubt, but they are not even in the same league as the real champions of survival. The most resilient life on Earth is almost entirely invisible. It's not an animal. It's not a plant. It's a microbe, specifically a group of organisms we call extremophiles. The name says it all. They are lovers of the extreme. They don't just tolerate conditions that would kill us instantly. They thrive in them. They make their homes in places we used to think were completely sterile, totally lifeless. Boiling hot springs, the crushing dark of the deepest ocean trenches, ponds so salty they never freeze, pools of acid that would dissolve metal. These organisms force us to rethink what it means to be alive. They redefine the boundaries of life itself, and trying to crown just one of them as the most resilient is tough because they are all specialists in their own particular brand of hell. It's like asking who's a better athlete, a marathon runner or a power lifter. They are both elite, just in different ways. So let's look at the contenders. Let's explore these bizarre and fascinating worlds where life stubbornly, impossibly exists. First, let's talk about the heat lovers. We call them thermophiles. That means heat loving. They live in temperatures that would scald and kill most other forms of life. Think of the hot springs in Yellowstone National Park. The water there is bubbling, steaming, and often near boiling, and yet the vibrant colors you see in those pools, the brilliant oranges, yellows, and greens, aren't just minerals. They are vast mats of thermophilic bacteria. Each color represents a different species living at a slightly different temperature. But some take it even further. The hyperthermophiles, the extreme heat lovers, live in temperatures above boiling. How is that even possible? We think of boiling as a sterilizing force. We boil water to make it safe to drink, to kill bacteria. And yet, there are organisms that call this environment home. You find them in the most alien place on our own planet, deep sea hydrothermal vents. These are volcanic fissures on the ocean floor. They spew out a superheated soup of chemicals and minerals. The water coming out of these black smokers can reach over 400 degrees Celsius. That's over 750 degrees Fahrenheit. It only stays liquid because of the immense pressure of the deep ocean. And clinging to the edges of these vents, in water well above boiling point, are communities of microbes. How do they do it? Life as we know it is built from proteins and DNA. Heat makes these molecules unravel. Think of an egg. When you cook it, the clear egg white turns solid and white. The heat has permanently changed the shape of the proteins. It's called denaturation. That's what would happen to our own cells in boiling water. They'd be cooked from the inside out, but the proteins of a hyperthermophile are built differently. They have stronger bonds holding them together. They are folded into more stable, more compact shapes. They are like tightly wound knots instead of loose bows. Their cell membranes are also special. A normal cell membrane is like a soft bag made of fats. Heat would cause it to melt and fall apart. The membranes of these microbes are made of a tougher, more rigid substance that holds together even when it's boiling. One of these heat lovers is actually a hero of modern medicine. An organism called Thermus aquaticus was found in a Yellowstone hot spring. It has an enzyme that can copy DNA at very high temperatures. A scientist named Carrie Mullis realized this enzyme could be used in a lab to make millions of copies of a single piece of DNA. This process is called PCR, the polymerase chain reaction. It is the foundation of genetic testing, forensic science, and much of the medical research we do today. Every time a DNA test is run for a crime or a virus is identified, we have a tiny heat-loving microbe from a hot spring to thank. So are these hyperthermophiles the most resilient? They live happily in conditions that would literally cook us alive. They are a strong contender, but what about the opposite extreme, the cold? Life that loves the cold is called a psychrophile, or cold-loving. And they live in some of the most desolate places on Earth. The deep oceans are just a few degrees above freezing. The ice sheets of Antarctica and the Arctic are frozen solid. Glaciers seem like permanent, lifeless blocks of ice. But they are not lifeless. Inside tiny veins of liquid water trapped within the ice, life persists. In the permanently frozen soil of Siberia, bacteria have been found that are hundreds of thousands of years old. They were frozen, dormant, and when thawed in a lab, they woke up and started moving around again. The main challenge of the cold is that it slows everything down. Chemical reactions, which are the basis of metabolism in life, grind to a halt. And there's the physical danger of ice. When water freezes, it forms sharp crystals. For a microscopic cell, an ice crystal is like a shard of glass. It can pierce the cell membrane and kill it instantly. Psychrophiles have clever ways to deal with this. Their cell membranes are the opposite of the heat lovers. Instead of being rigid, they are very fluid and flexible, full of special fats that act like an antifreeze, preventing them from becoming stiff and brittle. They also produce their own antifreeze proteins. These proteins surround tiny, seed-like ice crystals and prevent them from growing larger and more dangerous. They also have enzymes that are specially designed to work in the cold. A normal enzyme would be too stiff and slow to function. Theirs are more flexible, allowing them to keep the business of life going even at near freezing temperatures. Life in the cold is life in the slow lane. Some of these microbes might only divide once every 1,000 years. They are living on a completely different timescale from us. They are masters of patience, of waiting, of enduring. Their resilience is one of long, slow, quiet survival in a world of ice. So now, we've seen life in boiling water and in solid ice. What about chemical extremes? Consider acidophiles the acid lovers. They live in places that would dissolve your skin. The Rio Tinto in Spain is a river that runs red, not from clay, but from dissolved iron. It is as acidic as stomach acid. Old mines often leak water that is full of sulfuric acid with a pH of 2 or even 1. That's similar to battery acid. And yet, these places are teeming with microbial life. The problem with acid is that it's full of protons that want to tear other molecules apart. Inside a living cell, the environment needs to be kept at a neutral, stable pH. If the acid outside got inside, it would destroy the cell's internal machinery. Acidophiles manage this by being expert gatekeepers. Their cell membranes are incredibly good at pumping out any protons that manage to sneak in. They maintain a fortress, keeping the inside of the cell calm and neutral while a chemical storm rages just outside. It takes a huge amount of energy, but it allows them to live where nothing else can. On the other end of the scale are the alkaliphiles, the alkali lovers. They live in extremely alkaline conditions like the soda lakes of Egypt or the western United States. These lakes can have a pH of 11 or higher, similar to household ammonia or bleach. Just as acid is destructive, so is a strong base. Like the acidophiles, they are masters of controlling their internal environment. They have pumps in their membranes that work in reverse, bringing protons in to neutralize the alkaline conditions inside. Their enzymes are also built to work in this strange environment. In fact, some of these alkali-loving enzymes are used in laundry detergents. They are great at breaking down fats and proteins, the very things that cause stains, and they work perfectly in the alkaline water of a washing machine. Then there are the salt lovers, the halophiles. Go to a place like the Dead Sea or the Great Salt Lake. The water is so full of salt that you can float in it effortlessly. For most life, this is a desert. The problem is osmosis. Water always wants to move from a less salty area to a more salty area to create a balance. If you put a normal cell in super salty water, all the water from inside the cell would rush out. The cell would shrivel up and die of dehydration. Halophiles prevent this by matching the saltiness outside with their own saltiness inside. They pump their cells full of salt or other compatible molecules. This balances the osmotic pressure, so water doesn't feel the need to leave. It's a delicate balancing act. They have to accumulate these substances without poisoning their own internal workings. Many of these organisms have a distinct reddish-pink color. This is from a pigment that helps them capture light for energy, and also protects them from the intense sunlight in the shallow, exposed salt flats where they live. When you see pictures of pink lakes or red salt pans, you are looking at a world dominated by trillions of salt-loving microbes. What about pressure? We live at the bottom of an ocean of air. We feel its pressure, but we're used to it. Go to the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, nearly 7 miles down. The pressure there is over 1,000 times greater than at the surface. It's the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. It's enough to crush a military submarine like a tin can, and yet there is life. Piezo-philes, or pressure lovers, thrive in this environment. In fact, they need the pressure. If you bring them up to the surface, their cells literally fall apart. Their entire biology is adapted to the crushing weight of the ocean above. Their proteins and cell membranes are structured in a way that they only hold the correct shape under extreme pressure. At normal pressure, they become loose and non-functional. They are true natives of the deep, a world of total darkness near freezing temperatures and unimaginable force. So far, we've looked at single extremes: heat, cold, acid, salt, pressure. But one of the strongest contenders for the title of most resilient life form as a specialist in surviving something we consider universally deadly radiation. Meet Deinococcus radiodurans. Its nickname is Conan the Bacterium, and it has earned it. This microbe can withstand doses of radiation that are thousands of times greater than what would kill a human. A dose of 5 to 10 grays of radiation is lethal to a person. Deinococcus can handle 5,000 grays with no problem. It can take up to 15,000 grays and still survive. Radiation's primary weapon against life is that it shatters DNA. It rips the delicate strands of the genetic code to pieces. If the DNA is broken, the cell can't function. It can't repair itself. It can't reproduce. It's a death sentence. When Deinococcus gets hit with a massive dose of radiation, its DNA is shattered into hundreds of little fragments, just like any other cells would be. But then, something amazing happens. Within a few hours, it starts to put the pieces back together. It has multiple copies of its genome, and it uses these as a template. It has a suite of incredibly efficient DNA repair enzymes. It meticulously finds the broken ends, matches them up, and stitches its entire genetic code back together perfectly. After about a day, it's as good as new, ready to divide and carry on. It can also survive extreme cold, dehydration, and acid. It was first discovered in a can of ground meat that had been sterilized with radiation, or so people thought. The meat had spoiled, and this incredible survivor was the culprit. We don't really know where it evolved to get this superpower. There are no naturally high radiation environments on Earth, like the ones we create in labs. One theory is that this radiation resistance is a side effect of an adaptation to survive extreme dehydration. Desiccation or drying out also shatters DNA. So the ability to survive being completely dried out for years might have also given it the ability to piece its DNA back together after being irradiated. So, is Deinococcus the toughest? It survives a force that destroys the very blueprint of life. It's a powerful argument, but there is one more creature we have to talk about. It's not a bacterium. It's a tiny multicellular animal, and it is arguably the greatest survivalist of them all. It's the tardigrade, also known as the water bear or moss piglet. The tardigrade is a microscopic, 8-legged invertebrate that looks like a tiny, clumsy bear. You can find them all over the world, from the highest mountains to the deep sea, but they are most common in bits of moss and lichen. In their normal state, they are not particularly tough, but when their environment turns hostile, they do something extraordinary. They enter a state of suspended animation called cryptobiosis. They retract their legs, curl into a little ball called a ton, and shut down their metabolism to almost zero. They effectively become a non-living particle. In this state, their abilities are the stuff of science fiction. They can survive being frozen to just a degree above absolute zero, the coldest possible temperature in the universe. They can be heated to over 150 degrees Celsius, well above boiling. They can withstand pressure 6 times greater than those in the deepest ocean trench. They can survive massive doses of radiation, hundreds of times more than a human can. And most famously, they can survive the vacuum of outer space. In 2007, an experiment put dried up tardigrade tons on the outside of a satellite. They were exposed to the vacuum and the deadly cosmic radiation of space for 10 days. When they were brought back to Earth and rehydrated, many of them revived, and some even went on to reproduce successfully. They are the only animal known to be able to survive the raw, unfiltered environment of space. How do they do it? When they dry out, their cells produce special sugars and proteins that form a glass-like substance. This vitrification process protects their delicate internal structures, like DNA and proteins, holding them in a stable state and preventing damage. They essentially replace the water in their cells with a protective, glassy matrix. They are not alive, but they are not dead. They are paused. When conditions improve, even after decades or more, a drop of water is all it takes to bring them back. The glass dissolves, their cells rehydrate, their metabolism restarts, and the little water bear uncurls and toddles off as if nothing happened. So the tardigrade must be the winner, right? It can handle almost every extreme we've talked about: heat, cold, pressure, radiation, dehydration, even the vacuum of space. It's a polyextremophile, a lover of many extremes, but there's an important distinction to make. A hyperthermophile lives and thrives at boiling temperatures. That is its normal state. A tardigrade doesn't live in the vacuum of space. It survives it. It shuts down completely to endure the hardship. It's the difference between someone who loves living in a blizzard and someone who's really, really good at hiding in a shelter until the storm passes. So the question, what is the most resilient life form, becomes more complicated. Does resilience mean actively living in the harshest single condition imaginable? If so, the champion might be a hyperthermophile from a deep sea vent, calmly going about its business in a pressure cooker of toxic boiling water. Or does resilience mean the ability to withstand the widest range of lethal conditions, even if it means shutting down to do so? If that's the definition, the tardigrade is almost certainly the champion. Its ability to pause life itself is a survival strategy that is hard to beat. Or perhaps the title should go to something like Deinococcus radiodurans. It doesn't live in a radioactive environment, but it can withstand a sudden catastrophic DNA shattering event and just repair itself. This is a resilience based not on avoidance or tolerance, but on an almost unbelievable ability to rebuild from ruins. This is why there is no simple answer. Each of these organisms is a master of its own domain. They show us that the toolkit of life is far more varied and robust than we ever imagined. And this isn't just a fun who would win thought experiment. The existence of extremophiles has fundamentally changed how we look for life beyond Earth. For a long time, we searched for planets that were like ours, a habitable zone with liquid water on the surface, comfortable temperatures, and a nice atmosphere. We were looking for another Earth. But extremophiles taught us that the definition of habitable is much, much broader. Could life exist in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon, Europa, or Saturn's moon Enceladus? The water there is under a thick shell of ice, dark and cold, but it might have hydrothermal vents at the bottom of its ocean, just like ours. A perfect home for hyperthermophiles and pisophiles. Could life exist on Mars? The surface is dry, cold, and blasted with radiation. It seems dead, but what if life, like a xerophile or a radioresistant bacterium, exists just beneath the soil, dormant, waiting for a rare bit of moisture? Or what if it's deep underground, powered by chemical reactions in the rock? Extremophiles give us hope. They are living proof that life is not a delicate, fragile flower that needs perfect conditions. Life is tough. It is stubborn. It is creative. It can adapt to almost anything the universe throws at it. They show us that the pockets where life might be hiding could be much stranger and harsher than we ever dreamed. So, what is the most resilient life form on Earth? Maybe the question isn't about crowning a single species. Maybe the true answer is life itself, the concept of life. This replicating, adapting, evolving force that started on this planet billions of years ago and has since pushed its way into every conceivable niche. It has conquered boiling acid, solid ice, crushing pressure, and the void of space. From the glowing heat of a volcanic vent to the quiet, frozen sleep of a tardigrade, life persists. It finds a way. And that is perhaps the most resilient and most remarkable thing of all.